How would you respond to any insinuations on the part of the Kremlin that the West had anything to do with this?
Yeah, I'll be very clear. We had nothing to do with it, and we won't have anything to do with it. As I mentioned, it's an internal matter for the Russian government to address. Again, our focus is going to be on working with Ukraine, with our allies and our partners to ensure that they have what they need as they conduct their operations and defend their nation.
You know, we are seeing video released of Russian President Vladimir Putin being enthusiastically greeted by a crowd, the Russian people, greeting him, wishing him good health and 100 years of life. What do you make of the timing of the release of this video? Any question in your mind that this is propaganda, pure and simple?
Well, again, I'm not going to comment on President Putin and whether or not the Russian government is putting out any particular propaganda. Clearly, it is a serious situation for the Russian government to address. It's an internal matter, as I highlighted. So I'll leave it to them to talk about what they may or may not be doing.
I understand. We are tracking reports that 2 Russian generals are missing, or at the very least have disappeared from public view since these events. There is speculation at least one of them may have had advanced knowledge of the mutiny. Is the Pentagon aware of this? Can you share anything about their supposed disappearance?
Yeah, like you, we've been seeing those press reports that are out there. I don't have any information to provide on that front from here. Again, clearly the situation in Russia is something that we continue to monitor. But again, that is an internal matter for the Russian government to address. What we're going to do for our part here is not take our eye off the ball when it comes to supporting Ukraine and their efforts to defend their country and take back sovereign territory.
Well, and let's turn to the war in Ukraine. We know that Ukrainian emergency workers took part in a drill preparing for a potential radiation leak from the Russian-occupied nuclear plant, and Ukraine claims that Russia is planning a, quote, large-scale provocation at the nuclear plant. Does the U.S. or NATO have credible evidence of a planned attack at the nuclear facility?
Well, as you know, throughout this conflict, that has been an area of interest for many to ensure that there is no potential nuclear accident or incident. And I don't have any information right now to indicate that we're any closer to there being such an incident. And so, again, we'll continue to monitor that closely. I know the IAEA is as well, but I don't have any information to indicate that there's any particular danger there right now at this moment.
What can the U.S. and NATO do to tilt the balance in Ukraine's favor? What is the key ingredient to bringing Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table right now?
Well, look, when it comes to ending this conflict, President Putin could make that happen today by withdrawing his forces from Ukraine after their illegal invasion. And as we have since the very beginning of this invasion, the United States has been working very closely with our allies and partners around the world to ensure that Ukraine has the capabilities that they need to be effective on the battlefield. And you saw early on that they were able to take back some territory. And now as they conduct operations, offensive operations again, we're going to continue to stay in close contact to ensure that they have what they need to defend themselves and also change the equation on the front lines.
We've heard speculation that the mutiny could have been orchestrated by Putin as a way for him to perhaps move the Wagner troops to Belarus, perhaps even save face. Let's listen together quickly to what retired Major General William Enyart said on the show last week.
Was this whole thing an immense fraud cooked up by Prigozhin and Putin together with the assistance of Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, to con the West or Ukraine into believing that Russia is collapsing?
In our support of Ukraine, does it change any sort of strategy or calculus if, in fact, Putin did orchestrate this?
Well, again, I think the facts are that over a year and a half ago, Russia invaded Ukraine. So they already are in an existential fight. And that doesn't change, regardless of what happened in Russia last weekend. That fact doesn't change. And so, again, that's why you see us continuing to provide support to Ukraine. We had an announcement earlier this week about additional security assistance, and we'll continue to support Ukraine for as long as it takes.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.